Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you guys? Ladies and gentlemen. JJ, what are you, sir? Alright, we've got him. Gonna start from the beginning. Alright. What is going on? Alright, welcome guys, and I hope you're all good. Welcome to the channel. So, the aim here is very simple. We're going to listen to Mr. JJ. This was an interview, I don't know, it was long time ago. Not long, okay? But I want us to listen to what he is going to say. Professor JJ, one of the people that I listen to, it's Mr. JJ, okay? Because every time when he speaks, he makes sense, okay? So I listen to people when they speak, they make sense, okay? He is a professor, so what do you expect? You don't know what I'm talking about, right? Anyway, let's get to it, ladies and gentlemen. The channel name is what? TABANE'S Network. As you can see, bottom screen. Oh, you won't see, but the channel is TABANE'S Network. He was invited over there. Okay, let's get to listen. I don't know this guy. Maybe they will write his name somewhere. Well, let's see. Maybe I will see the name here. Nah, there is no name. But anyway, let me not waste your time. Let's just get into it.
Incompetence, not because they don't have what it takes, but because they lack tact. Ladies and gentlemen, tact is the wisdom to read the room. Tact is the wisdom to know when to speak. Tact is the wisdom to know when to act. It's such a great honor today. I'm so humbled and I'm so excited by the caliber of the guest that we have right now. He's a professor of communications at Wits University. Also, he's doing a lot of work at the University of Botswana. Well known in the media space, the man who tells it like it is. Professor JJ Tabane, a thought leader, is on TABANE'S Network. Prof, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Yeah. Such a great honor to have you here. We've not seen you in a while on the screens, so it's so refreshing to see you. How have you been?
I'm taking a break. But busy with other things.
Yeah.
As I was saying to you earlier, I've just finished marking for my students who are at politics and media at Wits.
Yeah.
And I'll also be taking a new class after July on which is an honors class as well on media and politics. So that's what's been keeping me busy. Doing some work in Botswana. Next week I'm doing a master class for spokespersons of government in Botswana. Just returned from Zambia a few months ago doing training for cabinet there. So that's what's keeping me busy, trying to do work in the continent, because I believe that there's a lot of things to be done in just strengthening the how the African story is told. You see. So that's what really I'm focusing on these days.
ChatGPT gets 123 million visits a day, and most people still use it like a toy. Here's how.
I was a bit surprised when you say you are now teaching, lecturing, and
Why were you surprised?
with the work that you are doing. I mean, with the work that you are doing, you know, to go back, you know, to the lecture hall and do that. Surprised, but also excited, you know, that you've considered to make some time to teach. How has it been? You loving it?
No, I'm loving it. But my approach really is less on theory and more of practice. Obviously, every academic project you have to have a departure, you know, on theory. But at the end, once those students have graduated, these are media and communication students, and they go into the industry, they can't be blank. And for me, that's my ambition. My mission is to, so whether it's the work that I'm doing at the University of Botswana or University of Wits, is to try and close the gap between the practical element, right, like what happens in the industry itself, and what the students are learning. So part of what I do is to also invite guest lecturers, invite editors, invite thought leaders, and so on, to talk to my students, to shape or rather to put into context what they are learning, right? They are learning about the role of the media in a democracy. That means nothing until you hear how an editor, right, takes that role seriously as they edit the paper, right? So that's really what I'm doing. I'm going to do more of this. I've done it before. I mean, it's not a new thing. It's just that in the past I've done it sort of, you know, in a drip drop kind of way, not in a consistent way where I actually have my own class and so on. So in this case, I'm standing in for a professor who is on sabbatical leave for the next 3 years. So taking those classes to final year media and
I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what did I do here. I don't know why is this guy sitting here. My guy, sit over here. All right? Stop doing that, bro. What are you doing? All right, let's go on.
well as honors starting next semester.
Do you think there's a gap? And I like that you're saying you're focusing more on practice. There's a gap on what universities are producing and the real demand in the market out there, particularly in the field of communication. Highly criticized, whether justifiably so or not, you can tell me. The quality of the communicators that we produce. Is there a gap?
No, there's definitely a gap, because if you look at the crop of people who are teaching, right, at these various universities, and it's not just universities I'm associated with, you may find that half of those people have never been in a newsroom. They've been academics for the last 20 years writing papers and what, which is good. But if you say to them, what happens in a newsroom? What do you do to produce a paper so that there's a daily paper like the Sowetan hits the street every morning? They won't tell you. Right? Yet they're teaching those students who are going to be media practitioners. So the clever thing to do is a partnership. Right? So being a young professor at the University of Botswana means that they look for somebody in the industry, right, who's not a typical academic, to come and add value and partner with the academics. So the academics will excel in the theory and so on, make sure that those students' minds are sharpened in terms of the theory. And then we come with the practice to say, if you were to produce a podcast, this is what you're going to do. Now, that's not in a textbook somewhere. Right? Hence, I was saying, can I bring you two of my students who have been tasked to produce a podcast to see what you're doing?
Yes.
Now, that knowledge that they're going to gain by being here for 4 weeks working with you, or even a year at some point, if you take them as an intern for now, will be 100% better than a theory. If I stand in front of them and say, this is how to produce a podcast, these are the 5 elements you must look at. You know, they would have done it. They would have seen all the variations of making sure this thing happens. So that's why my answer is that gap can be closed by partnering with industry and not just relying on people who are academics at the university. They've been there for 20 years. But they've not been in a newsroom now in 2025 to know what is happening. For example, now everything is going digital. What does that mean for a newsroom? Right now, that's not in many textbooks, because all of us are still trying to figure it out.
What are your views on the quality of journalists and journalism now? Under pressure, highly attacked and criticized, that we have lost the quality of journalists. What are your views on that?
Look, I mean, journalism has evolved. Right, it's evolved quite a bit. I mean, I've been in the media space for more than 25 years. So if I go back to the time that I started in the communication industry, I started as a spokesperson of a minister, young guy looking for any job at 25 years old. The kind of guys that we dealt with as journalists then, right, are a different caliber of the kind of journalists who are coming into the market now. In fact, some of them are now editors, are big editors and so on. And you think this guy was reporting there in Parliament, running around the corridors. Now he's a big editor making big decisions, right? So there's an evolution, even in terms of growth, etc.
But have we lost quality?
Journalism. No, I don't think so. I think
we have a chunk of low quality journalists now.
It's not low quality. That's why I'm trying to explain how it has evolved. So during that, let's say 25 years ago, right? You used to have what is called specialist journalists, or still a journalist with a bid. They say your bid is transport, right? I remember when I worked for South African Airways, I had to deal with journalists who have been reporting on aviation for 20 years. I don't know if somebody comes to say journalists who've been reporting on aviation, what can you tell them?
Yeah, no.
If you are a spokesperson who knows nothing about aviation. By the way, when I got to SAA, I had been working for the Chamber of Mines. So I moved from mining to aviation. I knew nothing about aviation. I had to take 6 months first to try to understand what on earth is going on. Yet I had to answer this journalist who's been reporting for 20 years.
An expert, yeah.
So the issue is that you needed resources to do that. It means that in a newsroom, somebody could just work for aviation only, right? Another one health only, another one mining only, etc. The resource base has reduced. I'm sure you have seen in terms of the state of the newsroom, how many journalists have lost their jobs, even during COVID, afterwards, and so on. Almost half of the journalists, right, who used to be in those specialists have retired or have lost their jobs. Right? So you could say it's about the quality, but I would say it's about the circumstances within which the economy finds itself. The issue about economic growth and so is also applicable in the media sector. So there's no massive cash floating around for you to pay a specialist journalist to come and report them only about one thing.
So they have to be all-rounders. They are forced.
Unfortunately, they are all-rounders. And that may eventually sort of impact on how they can report in depth. Right? Some of them are still credible journalists. There are lots of them in both in broadcast and in print and on digital. Right? But there is a shift away from putting enough resources, right, to get journalists to be specialists in their area. So they tend to just go for any story that comes around, and maybe they'll have a cluster. So there'll be somebody who let's say works for the business day. So obviously they'll be interested in economics, financial matters, the financial industry, and so on, and not go and write about squatter camps in college. That won't be something that the publication will publish anyway.
You're saying you're doing some work with government communicators. Another challenging area. They are now known as spin doctors. People, that's how they are seen. To spin doctoring, to change, always say, no, he didn't mean that, he meant this, no, misunderstood. What do you say to them?
Yeah, I'm not sure who call them spin doctors. The quality of communications that we have in this country is far from spin doctor. Spin doctor is a highly sophisticated
but you call people on your show and you call them out because the minister says this, but now the communicator has to take the punches and try to change the narrative.
You'll be shocked that actually that's in very rare cases. Generally, the communicators are just going about doing their work. They may not be as sophisticated and thorough as the first crop of communicators. The first crop of communicators in the New South Africa, right, included people like Panyaza Lesufi. And Panyaza was a spokesperson of the Minister of Education in the first administration or the second administration.
I remember.
That was a new crop of communicators because remember the GCIS, right, after it replaced what was called the South African what South African Communication Service, I think it was called, right, which was focused on propaganda, right?
Yes.
Just focused on propaganda. The GCIS was conceptualized as a system to connect the people with the government. Right? Hence it was called a system, a government communication and information system. Right? So it was talking about a new culture of communication. So the new communicators did not have a baggage of, this is how our predecessors used to communicate.
Yes.
So ourselves, the Sufi, people like Sipong Gwema, me and Sipong Gwema got the award of Government Communicators of the Year in 2002 from the work that we did. The work that he did at the Scorpions, the work that I did at the World Summit on Sustainable Development. So there was a new a new culture of how to communicate, which was transparency, talking to the people, be able to get feedback, and packaging information in such a way that it will be useful for your constituencies, right?
If you're an estate agent in Johannesburg and you're waiting on your commission, I know the feeling.
Now, if you look at and I don't want to say the Zuma era, but for lack of a better word, right?
Yeah.
A number of issues of corruption began to be more pronounced, right? Which put communicators in a fix. Because if your boss is caught in corruption, if you are a spokesperson for a Musebenzi one. And this has happened in real life. The spokesman for the Musebenzi had to go and contradict Musebenzi one.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. I don't know if Musebenzi contradict the spokesman. One of them was lying, obviously. Not both of them could be telling the truth, right? But I wanted to say it's a rare occurrence. Generally, communicators fall in line. They work closely with the principal and so on. I think they can do better in terms of media relations. In fact, my whole thesis on my PhD was focused on the relationship between government and media, and how that can be improved. The last chapter, if anybody's interested, gives you suggestions of what to do to enhance that relationship, right?
Yeah.
And a number of communicators now actually don't have those skills for some reason. And part of the problem was that it's always it's seen as a soft career option, right? Even in the way, even in the way that people, because it's a personal. If you're a spokesperson of somebody, it's almost like a personal appointment.
Yeah.
Or call it a political appointment. You can't just get anybody in the street and make them your spokesperson.
I want us to move from this one because I've got things that I want to pick your brains on. But let's get this out of the way because we see a lot of people in media space, whether you're on radio broadcasting, and they're appointed as
spokesperson.
Person.
Yeah.
Is that a perfect fit in your view?
Not always. And I know a number of friends who are media people, and when they got to be spokespersons, they got very frustrated because we are media persons.
And they don't last. Many that I have seen.
Yeah. First of all, you've got freedom of thought when you are a journalist.
Yeah.
Right? And you've got a diversity of material that you are dealing with. The thing we're talking about, you end up being an all-rounder. Suddenly you are a spokesperson of Minister of Cocta. So all you have to talk about is Cocta. And you must try to package a nice story about Cocta. Then you must reach out to your old friends and say, hey man, my minister wants to come onto your show. They say, no, it's not a story. Now you're on the other side. You feel the pain that you have been inflicting on your colleagues all along when they want stories and want their principles to be. So it's not always a seamless transition. These are two different careers. To be a journalist who's writing and exposing the truth and following up and talking to different people to create a story is different from being a spokesperson whose job is to tell a story of one
100%.
entity, your principal or your department. Those are not the same skills, right? But it's not difficult to transcend. You just need to understand, right, that it doesn't follow that if you're an anchor of a TV show, suddenly you can be a spokesperson. There were a number of people who actually went back to their jobs as journalists.
Few names pop up now. Professor JJ, what are your thoughts on the state of the country right now? State of the nation, if you like. My view is that we're on a point of inertia, right? And I think that point of inertia was, in a sense, was occasioned by the elections of last year. Okay.
The elections of last year, the NC lost elections. They were at 40%. Right? In a normal situation, they would just go to the opposition benches and allow the balance of the other people who have 60% to rule. But it happened the other way, so they mobilized the other people, concocted a government which still gives them 75%, right? But in order to do that, they had to sacrifice, in a sense, big principles. They went into bed with people who are anti-change, right? And these people were not labeling them anti-transformation. DA has been very clear about the fact that they don't want BEE, they don't want affirmative action, they don't want NHI, they don't want expropriation of land. All the things that you're trying to do, right, to try and move the boundaries or close the gap of inequality, right, that we are known for, that we are global leaders in inequality. We are the worst unequal country in the world, right? So what you have done by putting a GNU with people who are on opposite ends is that it looks like it's going to become an argument for the next 5 years. That's why I call it inertia. So DA is going to take you to court, for doing this. It's going to take you to court for expropriation. It's in court for NHI. It's in court for employment equity. They're in court for all the things that we are trying to do. Why did you partner with them? Did you think that they were going to change after they are in government? And clearly they haven't changed. A year down the line, right? Forget about what the markets are saying. Oh, the markets are very happy. And so, yes, the markets are very happy because they're not the ones who are living under the poverty line. Right? Half of this country is living under the poverty. Living under the poverty line means that you don't know where your next meal is going to come from.
Yeah.
Now, you can't tell me, right, as we celebrate 70 years of Freedom Charter today, you can't tell me that should satisfy you as a revolutionary movement, that at least we've managed to hang on to power. But you're not changing the lives of your people. Right? You're not changing the lives of your people. And I'm not just saying it because I don't like the ANC. Because people, when you say this, they say, hey, you hate the ANC. I don't hate the ANC. I'm just saying your economic indicators are that your economy for the last decade at least has grown by 0.
I wasn't made to sit in a class for 8 hours and listen to someone which I felt wasn't teaching.
That is actually a failure. In the last decades, it grows about 0 point 0.1, 0 point, that's the economy. That is called a failure, my guy. Even if you can justify it and try, it's a failure. Okay? It is unfortunate, guys, that we find ourselves in this situation, you know? It is very unfortunate. I don't know. Guys, you know, South Africa, I think it could have been far. You know, it could have been far if things were done well, if things were done accordingly. It is an unfortunate situation. It's very painful, okay? Because it means that the generation that is going to come, they are going to find the same situation, okay? That means whatever that we've left here, they will find it here without being changed. And they will come and they will pass. They will leave it like this, okay? Unfortunately. And this thing of starting parties and everything, for me, it doesn't work for me, guys. It doesn't work. It cannot be that every time when we think that there could be a change, then there must be somebody who starts a party. And then when the, you know what, let me just, it's okay.
Okay, just grown by 0. Don't tell me 0.10 is 0. Because in any event, economic growth indicators are always an estimation. So if you're saying 0.2 or 3, you could even be at minus growth for all we know. Right? But I'm not a statistician, so I won't venture. But it's called comfort to tell me it's 0.6. You're growing at 0. You're not growing the economy.
Yeah.
Right? Your people are starving. You got people sleeping under bridges. People think it's an exaggeration. People who are homeless, people who are hungry, people who don't know what they're going. Then you got unemployment rates that are skyrocketing at 40% or whatever. Don't tell me about the propaganda of this Capitec, whatever CEO who's saying, oh, in fact, we're at 10%. That's nonsense. The Statistics General has told us the unemployment rates in this country are a calamity. Right? So if you look at those indicators, which I call time bombs, and you look at the government of national unity that's supposed to reverse those things, you worry because the partners in there don't want those things, don't want that reversal. They would rather keep the status quo, which is what the markets seems to be interested in. That's why now we have to spend our days defending BEE, saying, oh no, cancel the BEE, is the one that's causing. The reason you have BEE still exist is because a majority of the population is excluded from economic activity, and you need to fix that.
You're saying it's a ticking time bomb.
It is.
1994, it was a period of hope, great expectation. I think that was the period that was supposed to be characterized as a new dawn. Before. But eras, different leadership came into place. How should people feel now? Because 2010, there was hope that no, things will get there. But this period, people no longer have that hope.
Yeah.
And that hope came through ANC, but you just said it now. They lost elections. How do we characterize this period? I know you've just explained right now, but for a young person watching this show, what is this period? Ticking time bomb, anytime. What does it mean?
Yeah. So the The ANC came with great hope and expectation in 1994. And I think for a while, they were focused in terms of trying to get us there. You know, from the RDP, you may not like Gear, but if you look at the economic growth during the time of Trevor Manuel and Thabo Mbeki, it was 5%. That's huge. That's like 5 times more than what we've got now. You know, if it was at 5%, and we're saying, you know, in 2030 we want to be at 6%, but we've gone backwards, right? So it means that the leadership at the center of making sure that that economic growth happens is failing us, right? And I think there was a good part of the population that demonstrated that at the polls by making sure the ANC loses the election, right? But it seems that we need to do more, because they lost the elections but won the negotiations somehow, and remain in power, and they are so arrogant as to believe that they still are in full power and they can do as they please, and that's part of the trouble. We are going to exactly get the leaders that we deserve.
You know, you saying this, I normally say go Northwest. Do you know there are people who still don't think they are in the ANC, but they still don't know or feel the ANC has lost the election? They think it's business as usual.
That's the problem.
I say Northwest, you know, they think, they don't see this graph going down. They think no, we still. That's
the trouble. Which means that when come another election, we need to be more decisive. You see how the Botswana people voted?
Yeah.
They didn't joke. They didn't give them this other party 40%. They gave them 3 seats.
Yeah.
There was no maneuver. You are out, and a new crop of people come in. So we've been at it for 30 years. The NC has had enough chance to deliver. They failed. Right? They failed. Right? And I'm not saying that nothing good happened in the 30 years. I'm just saying they have failed. Why? Because we expect better of them. We expect higher standards.
Are we in a leadership recession in this country?
I'm not sure what the leadership recession means, but
okay, in this context,
but maybe we can say deficit.
I want to
let's try and think about this, okay? Let's say what JJ Tabane happens, which is South Africans decides to take the ANC out. That means they give them maybe, let's say, 5 seats, 3 seats, you know? I'm just making an example. And then the ANC, obviously, they are going to be somewhere in the opposition parties. At the top there, let's just say, for argument's sake, you've got your MK party, you've got your DA perhaps, you've got your, let's maybe put EFF over there, okay? And then maybe you've got other guys there. What is going to happen? Let's say the DA is number 1, right? In terms of votes. Now they will have to look for someone to work with, right? If they are not over 50%. That means if they are below 40% or 41%, whatever that is, okay? They are going to have to look for somebody to work with. And to look for somebody to work with, they cannot go to the ANC, because the ANC would have had 3 seats, which I think it will not be enough the way I'm thinking it. Now they will have to speak to those guys who are at the top, which is going to be what? MK party, and perhaps, let's say, the EFF. I'm just giving you a picture of if it happens like that, right? Now, that means we're going to have what? A sort of like a coalition between those parties at the top, and which is going to be at the MK and the other parties. The problem is, though, who is going to work with who? Who is going to work with who? Who is going to say, I will work with the DA? Because the DA and the EFF and the MK party, it seems like they don't like each other. So it means that unless maybe people, because of power, because of they are at the tip of the power, they are smelling power, they are smelling some nice things, and then perhaps they decide to change their minds and go to the DA and say, listen, let's work together. Because you know politicians, right? When you are there and you are about to, okay, sometimes it changes your mind, okay? Just like you saw in the GNU. Others, they said, we don't want to be part of the GNU. Later they came back and said, we want in. Okay? I'm just giving you a picture of what might happen if what JJ says, let's say we punish the ANC more. That means we give them very small 2 seats, 3 seats. You see?
Because we look at from 94, the quality of the leadership in this country, I'm not sure whether it's a fact or it's a perception, it's been going down.
Yeah.
Where people do not know where to look up to. There are no leaders, decisive leaders who people have hope that they can make the right decisions. Institutions are collapsing.
Yeah.
We need leadership more than ever before, but we don't know where to look.
Yeah. I think that there are leaders in South Africa. They're just not in the right places to make the right impact.
Okay.
Right? And, you know, before the elections, I was the advocate of government of national unity. People thought I'm mad.
It's either they are in other places or they are afraid. Okay? Maybe because they have seen when people go there and try to make a change, try to do things right, their lives are threatened. Yeah, you might be taken out, you might be what. So I think it's not only because people are, maybe people are, I think there is that fear, man, when it comes to politics, because now we know that politics is dirty. Now we know that politics, it needs you to have a very thick skin, okay? Because it's not a child's play. It's not like a game, that thing. Okay, it is a game at the end of the day, but when it comes to it, people taking it very serious, especially if you take other people's positions, if you end up, other people not getting certain things because of you, in most cases it creates that animosity. Okay, so I believe that not only what JJ is saying, but I can add and say actually it might also be people are afraid, right? Anyway, that's just my opinion.
I'm crazy.
Yeah, I remember.
I said, no, I think what you need is a government of unity. And the reason I used was to say, if you took a Tlhabisa and a Malema and a Pakstau, a cabinet of those kind of guys, right? But who are in different parties. If you took somebody like Mpopalatsi, brilliant, was a mayor here who did not last because people like that don't last. But if you took it out of the DA and put it in a government of national unity of some kind, where merit is a key criteria, not where you're coming from, right? Now, if you listen to it, you think this is naive. It will never happen because people are always going to arrive there with a party political head. But I was making that argument to say I don't have confidence that any one of these parties can be handed the country, right? Yeah. And I was clear that the so-called moonshot, which John Steenhuisen was pioneering, was a false start. Right? And they were very angry with me. John Steenhuisen, even today, doesn't talk to me. I said, this is the first, it will never happen. You'll govern that moonshot at the moon, not here. Right? But the issue was that I was an advocate of government national unity because I believe that there are good leaders across all these parties, all of them. Right? But and what the country needed in a crisis moment like this was to bring all those together. I mean, somebody like Esongezo Zibi, who's now chair of the Scopa, as a minister of finance, would be a brilliant minister of finance. But the ANC will probably never give finance to somebody who's not ANC. Right? Oh, by the way, and then all these parties contradicted me to say, no, it will never happen. IFP said, no, if you do a GNU, to be like bringing people who have lost through the back door. The DA said, will never do a deal behind the... I think it's only the ANC that said, no, we can consider a GNU. But everybody else was opposed to it. Now they are all in it, 10 parties. They've forgotten so quickly that they were opposed to the government of national unity. Unfortunately, the current one is a fake government of national unity because it was meant for the ANC not to make a decision.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. So JJ, when he spoke about when he started by saying they are there, okay, the leaders are there, but they are in wrong places. I guess he was talking about politics. For me, I can say also even outside, okay, there are people that you can take in, and they don't have to come. Unfortunately, guys, when it comes to politics, you have to come through the structures. That means there is no way that is going to happen that you can just have a person who comes somewhere. They will tell you that the person has to come through their structures and everything like that, So I guess when it comes to politics, we are stuck with politics. We are stuck with people from politics. There are people who might also think about maybe other professionals out there who might be presidents, other professionals out there who might be ministers. But unfortunately, that sometimes creates very a conflict, because people, they will be like, yeah, but you can't put somebody who has not gone through the eye of the needle. You can't put somebody there who is not our member. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. But as for me and my heart and my only heart, when it comes to politics, I don't have any trust on anyone. Unfortunately, when people get to power, it seems like they tend to be something else. Okay? Now, if you look at those guys who are doing well in terms of, for example, Nasipi Moya, I don't view or I don't take or I don't think of Mrs. Nasipi Moya to be a politician, according to me. I don't think she is. She's a professional, and it happened that he got into the Action SA, and then, from there, you can see that all of them, even if you are a professional, you call yourself and you say, I'm not a politician, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to go through the politics for you to get to that position. Okay? That's how it is, unfortunately. Like who also? Yeah, I think it's Nasipi Moya. Who else? I think also, as Mr. JJ says, people like Mzibi there. You can tell that even though they are in politics, but you can tell that also they are professionals. They can do a great job. I don't know about him being a minister, but I think he can be a good one. I think he's very sober, that guy. I don't know, because when you are in committees, you're a chairperson. It's not the same as if you are a minister. There are a lot of technicalities, a lot of things there. Others, they don't like you. Politics, guys, it's something else, man. Unfortunately, we are stuck with this system. And unfortunately, our leaders, they will have to come through that. And even if you've got somebody that you are thinking of to be the president, they will have to come through the politics. I remember there was a speculation. It's not a speculation, just a talk of people saying Mogoeng might become a president. Let me tell you something. You may have that wish, but I can tell you, they will have to come through the ranks of the politics. Otherwise, in that party, if they allow him, in that party there's going to be fights. He is not going to have it easy, because they will be fighting him every time in that party. That is why I'm saying, we are stuck here with these politicians. And when you look at the leaders, now, JJ says that if they can come together, all of them, they can find people in those parties that can work well, do the work very well. I agree with that, but I can tell you again, when people taste power, I am telling you, anyway.
Decision to partner left or to partner right. So they said, no, let's just bring everybody together. And then you ignore those people. I mean, they've gone on to pass legislation. That's why these people are in court now. Right? Yeah. So the idea of a governmental unity of 1994.
Why can't I make any changes without an admin approval? Huh? You should try Monday.com.
Nah.
And the current concoction is not the same thing. Right? So, coming back to your question, there are leaders, very good leaders in all these parties. Right? But we have not found a mechanism to bring them all together in a proper national effort. Right? And hopefully, and I'm hoping here against hope, that maybe when you go to this national dialogue, that could be a start of that, to say, guys, we're in a crisis as a country. What can we do to pull together to try and fix and fix this thing? But I don't think we must give up. There are lots of good leaders in business, in civil society, etc. Those people are not interested in politics because they've become so muddied and dirty, so they are going on with their lives and doing other things.
I like what you're saying, Jorge. We need to look. We're in a crisis as a society. What would you say to someone who argues that the quality or the current leadership state in South Africa is a reflection of who we are as a society? Because where do these leaders come from? They're produced by this society. Do we need to start to change the crop that we produce as a society?
Yeah, no, I think that goes without saying. That's why I was saying we get the government that we deserve.
Yeah.
In the Northwest, it's one of the worst provinces in terms of poverty.
Yeah.
Right? collapsing infrastructure and what have you, and we keep voting for the ANC there. I mean, there's a place they call Swaying. I used to refer to it on my show, where things are so bad that the sewage is flowing into graveyards. Imagine in our culture how sacred we see ancestors and so on. But poor service delivery even follows people to the grave. Yet in that Swahili municipality, 68% people they voted for the ANC after that kind of neglect. So why then why do you come and complain later and write letters I receive? I mean, if I open my email now, I mean, I can't even deal with a quarter of the complaints that I receive from people in municipalities in what complaining about the government they voted for. Next week they are matching. I mean, look at what's happening. There's some municipality here where they couldn't pay salaries yesterday.
Are we a problem as a society now? Maybe not the one that, because we appoint them.
Yeah. No, we are a problem. That's what I'm saying. We need to take a leaf out of what Botswana did. People in Botswana have always been seen as shy of politics, and they quietly went to the polls and just removed the guys who have been there for 5 decades. Right? That's what must happen. Look at what's happening now in Kenya with those riots there. Those people have always been sort of seen as very quiet, allowing whoever wants to rule, allowing the leaders to fight over positions and what. And then now they're taking matters into their own hands. And that's what you're going to see increasingly in the continent. Right? Mauritius, I think, did the same thing, put in a new government, etc. Here we are still dilly-dally, but the trend is clear. If you look at the last elections, ANC has never in its wildest dreams thought they'll go below 50% by 10, almost. They're 39% actually, which keeps saying 40. They're actually 39, right? And for me, there's nothing they're doing now that would actually stop that trend. If anything, it can get worse in 2029.
Where should we go for good leaders? Where do we find them? Civil rights movements, organizations? Because it looks like...
good leaders are everywhere. Even in politics, they are there. There are some good people, right? Just that politics by its nature is going to drown the good ones, right? But, it's not scientific to say where are you going to find good leaders, because good leaders are in every sector of society. Right? If you look at the sports field, for example, there are good leaders there. In the sports field, that's why we're winning left, right, and center on the world stage.
But there's a problem of leadership. Kubo Safa, Kubo Gaikai, and other institutions.
Look, I mean, if the quality of our sportsmanship had to do with the quality of administration in a place like soccer, will never succeed. I mean, people like Danny Jordan have got to retire.
Imagine if
just become a typical African leader who doesn't see anything wrong with being in office for 30 years.
But Prof, imagine if we had good administrators and good leadership, good leaders, administrators, and good leadership on the pitch. Imagine where we'd go. Yeah,
but I'm saying that. But why don't you vote Danny Jordan out? What is stopping you from voting somebody like that who's essentially arrogant, right? And is stagnating soccer. But you don't vote them out. You keep voting them, and then you complain that there are no leaders. There are very good leaders in soccer.
But should we concede that there's a leadership crisis in this country?
No, there is a leadership crisis. All I was saying to you is that the crisis is not on the quantity. That there are many leaders. It's a question of where they are placed to make an impact, right? So somebody like maybe like a Patrice Motsepe, and there are discussions about why maybe you should come and lead the country, right? It may be that he's misplaced. That's not we don't need him in soccer. Maybe we need him in making sure that the country works, right?
Are we anti good people and good leaders? You made an example, Mpo Palati, where good people, they don't last. As a society, we don't have time for good people. We find a way to get rid of them.
Yeah, it's what is called the PhD syndrome. It's not your Australian PhD. The pull him down syndrome in general society. I don't know where it comes from. But I mean, if you use Mpopalat was just a victim of racism in the DA, really, nothing else. He couldn't stand the fact that you got a black mayor who's actually a success. In fact, even when she was taken out of office illegally, she had to fight that case by herself. The DA was not really interested. They were saying, let's walk away and what. And she went there and won the case. Right? And they still didn't support her, to stay and what. Right? They didn't support her as a leader of the DA itself, which I think would have put them in a better state to actually lead the country if they put Mpopalat there instead of John Steenhuisen.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a different reason in the DA for black people not to advance. I don't know if you tell you how many black people left who are capable people. Patricia Dilil is fantastic human being. Why would the DA lose a person like that? Why would the DA chuck a person like Mashaba or Maimane out? Right? And the theme is the same, right? Racism in the DA. They can polish it whatever they want, I don't care. but it's quite clear that they are nervous about black people being in charge. In the ANC situation, if you are too competent, you overshadow the people who are entitled to positions, you will be a target. Like, look at a Panyaza Lusufi. I mean, you can say what you like about Panyaza, right? But if you compare him with all the other premiers of the ANC, some of them you may not even know at the top of it. If I ask you who's the premier of Mpumalanga, you probably will struggle. I don't know. Right?
Not true.
Right, and you know Oscar Mabuyan because he's always in the news for the wrong reason. So you'll know he's the premier of the Eastern Cape, you know. But Panyaza Lusufi was one of the best in terms of the ANC crop, right? But they said no, he must get out. They even wanted to chase him out of the thing and whatever, because they think that this guy, you know, is actually looks better than most of them and may actually be one of the ANC leaders in the future, even though he may say, I'm not interested. And so, you know, politicians always say they're not interested, you know, until they say, the branches say I must stand. So they don't believe him when he says he's not going to stand for high office. He doesn't want to contest Mashatile or whatever else. I'm giving an example. There are many examples like that, particularly within the progressive movement, right, where people who are actually doing their work end up being a target. And I'm not sure why that is so. You know, people who are competent and what are not put in the front lines, you know, to do work that would put the ANC in particular in a good light. You know,
there are different.
It's eating, Baba. No, you can't put that guy, man. We've got our friend here. You promise us. We vote for you, my man. We've put you as a man. We've put you there as a deputy president. We are expecting you to give this guy a chance. We told you that we will put you there and you have to look at us. That's how it is. It's nothing else. It's nothing less. It's nothing more. Simple as that. Okay? You promised us. You can't put that guy. Yes, we can see that he might do a good job. They will say, nah, you can't put him. Let him eat. Let this one eat. Let this one eat. Let this one eat. Remember that guy, my minister, who said let people eat. That's how it is, guys. That is why, I mean, for me, I look at politics as a place where people, if you want to do something with your life, not something with your life, if you want to have some quick money, you know, some money that you can generate for yourself, you go to politics. You just go through the ranks, especially if you start as young. You start as young and then you grow. You know that some years to come, you will be there, somewhere, premier, mayor, whatever. You know, contesting there at the end of the day, whatever. And people, they don't want somebody who is going to interfere with their bread and butter. It's never going to happen like that. All right? That's how it is, guys. There's no any other reason I can think of why people, they always remove people who are competent. Simple. We want to eat also. We want to eat.
And recently, there are leaders who have been characterized as cult, leaders. And I'll make a few examples. In Buputatswana, we had a strong leader, Ndate Mangope, Lucas Tautona Mangope. But for Botswana, he was a hero for them. KZN, the homelands. And some people argue, people like Bosupra, they were going in that model of people naturally want the hero from their people. So what are your view on what is called cult leaders? Some call them authoritarian dictators. Is the problem of producing leaders maybe with this democratic process of putting these people into place?
I don't know, cult, I mean, it sounds like a huge exaggeration. The reality is, if you look at all political parties in South Africa, there is, I don't want to put it too negatively, but I don't have a choice here, but like a big man syndrome kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? On one hand. On the other, there's a culture of deference to a leader. We defer to a leader, you understand? So Mandela we are told of stories where he would instruct the NEC. They can talk, there were 80 people. Sorry. Not agree, then walks out, go to his house. In those days, there was a fax, and fax them a decision to say, this is what we are going to do. Right? Mbeki, you had to think 2 times to try and contradict Mbeki in a meeting. Unless you didn't want to continue to exist in that ANC. Right? So, he was a leader, and it was worse because he had the intellectual depth to intimidate many people. So it was not like a leader who was empty and people just deferred to him because they were elite. He actually had an intellectual prowess to humiliate anybody.
Have you seen how AI is completely revolutionizing the trading game? In fact, AI is revolutionizing every...
And in fact, a lot of journalists would rather not interview him back because for fear of being humiliated.
Yeah.
Right? So, same with Zuma, Ubaba. He was in power for 10 years, almost, as president of the ANC. And you can't tell me that people didn't see that this fellow was wrecking the ANC. But they deferred to him. He wouldn't speak in a meeting and challenge him. Right? After all, he was going to be the one who would appoint the cabinet. And he was clear in terms of his power. He would reshuffle you at midnight.
Yeah.
Unlike Ramaphosa, we can't even know who he has fired nobody. Even the one that he fired, this Sisulu, it's after a year of the guy of that minister being truant. I mean, if a minister contradicts the president, must be fired on the spot. No, Ramaphosa took it 12 months to find an excuse to get here out and whatever. Right? So if you look at all these leaders, I've just mentioned the ANC.
Yes, yeah.
There's a difference to that. Right? So I'm not sure why that makes them a cult. Right? If you look at the other small parties, all of them have had leaders forever.
Yeah.
Lokota was a leader until he could not stand up. I don't know where he is now. Right? He hung on to power for the whole time that COPE existed. Holomisa has been a leader of the UDM since it was formed. I'm not sure whether the UDM and the other people who can be president. He's been leader for more than 25 years for something. I don't know. I think UDM is 20-something years old. I can go on and all these leaders. There is a quote unquote on the one extreme, what can you call a big man syndrome. On the other, a difference to leaders. Look at the DA. Zille is saying, I want to be mayor of Johannesburg. After all, he has to retire now. No, she's not going to retire. In the entire DA, she thinks there's nobody better than her to be the leader. Because remember, she was the leader after then my money came. Then she came back by back door to be the leader. Really, let's be honest. I mean, if you can't compare John Steenhuisen and Helen Zille, I would like to be a fly in the wall whether Steenhuisen can even argue anything against Helen Zille, right? But again, there it's not just about black parties and what. Here's even the main opposition. There's a gogo there who won't retire. Right? She believes in her mind that she's the only thing, the best thing that has happened to the DA. And she's demonstrated it once again. She says in a year's time, or whenever the elections are going to happen, when she should be announcing her retirement, she says, no, I want to run the city, biggest city in the world, in the continent.
Yeah.
Crazy. Right? So this thing about a cult and what, I'm not a fan of labels. I'm just trying to explain to you that it's a trend, right? That is not isolated to a Malema. Because Freud is trying to make us believe that this is linked to Malema. Oh, no, but he was part of the ANC for a long time, where the leaders there themselves behaved exactly like Malema. Right? There's a difference to the leader. Right? We're just talking offline. Some people say, for example, why is it that the January 8th statement is always the president who's speaking? We've never questioned that.
Yeah.
Right? And the January 8th statement has been there since 1972. Right? So, to be the president who speaks. But there's a deputy president, there's a general secretary. Why on another year don't they say, let the general secretary be the one to speak? Right? But when it's Malema, they say, no, but he speaks at all the EFF rallies. Yeah, but it's the same tradition. All these people are all cut from the same cloth.
We miss you on radio, miss you in our screens.
Yeah.
Why have you left your show?
No, I didn't leave my show. My contract ended. I had a 5-year contract.
Why didn't you renew?
Because I want to do other things. Right? And I'm going to be launching my own platform very soon. I'm not in a hurry for it. I'm taking a break, as I was saying, doing other things, lecturing, writing, also running my business. I run a communications business. To have a show every day in a week, it means that half of your life is that show.
Yeah. You still maintain you have given freedom to...
At ENCA.
You were never censored in any way. Maybe censorship is the wrong way.
All right, so let me tell you something. So I was at ENC for 5 years. Right? So just calculate how many shows
they have
been there. In all those shows, we probably had an argument with my bosses on only about 3 shows. Right? Where they were not sure or they wanted to suggest a different approach. For example, I interviewed Ronnie Casserels, right? Ronnie Casserels came to the show. It was a pre-recorded show. So we're meant to have somebody from Israel to debate with him. right? Then there was a technical issue and we couldn't connect that because the person was going to join us from Tel Aviv, right? So I ended up interviewing Ronnie Castles alone, right? I interviewed him. It was a pre-recorded show, so I left. I went to Botswana. I was busy with Botswana that week. And then they didn't play the show. They said, no, but this is one-sided, which was true. Because in the context of the conflict in the Middle East, there'll always be an argument. So it's always a good idea to have a counter view, right? So they said, no, Chief, this is going to cause us problems. So I came back and I said, hey, why didn't you play the show? But no, because there was only one person talking, this is going to get us into trouble. So I said, all right, that's fine. Let's bring the Jewish Board of Deputies to debate with him. Right? So Ronnie Castles himself said, no, you are censoring me and so on. So I had to call a meeting between the ENCA and Ronnie Castles, and we had a discussion about how best to handle this. And then we finally agreed, okay, we'll play the interview of Ronnie Castles, and then we'll interview the Vice President of the Jewish Board of Deputies, and then on the third segment, right, we'll get them to debate. That was one of the best shows in terms of viewership. The way we calculate viewership on television is what we call the market share. Power to Truth has always had the biggest market share for 5 years, uncontested at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, true.
So anything from 40% to 90% of the market. That show was 90%, and I'm not joking with you. It was the best watched show. So you see that out of...
So it's a record.
It's a record.
Show, yeah.
It's a record show. But if they had played Ronnie alone, it would not have been. Right? So we had that debate. There was another debate about... There were two other debates. One, I had interviewed...
Jacob Zuma?
No, I come with the Jacob Zuma one. The lady, Ria Lidwaba, who wanted to contest David.M.
Yes.
So we had a disagreement about that because they said, well, why did you bring her alone? I said, no, it's fine. I want to talk to her alone. Right? But at the end, they played the show. Right? And then there was an interview where I interviewed the DG of Pravin Gordhan. And they said, no, Pravin must come in the spawn. I said, no, you can come in the spawn. It took 3 weeks for us to air that show. I'm just giving you this because I can remember there are 3 isolated shows in 5 years. The rest of the time they left me alone to do whatever I want.
I understand.
The Zuma interview, it's on record that they didn't want to.
The elections.
They didn't want to play that show. Yeah. They gave an excuse of that it was too close to the elections and so on. But and we didn't start here. But the work that I do in the media, I see it as a ministry. It's not something I just do for fun or whatever because I'm bored, right? It's because it's a ministry, right? And often what happens on that show, and I would say to my producer, sometimes we also don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know whether you remember the interview with Nati Muthetwa about the flag.
Yes.
One normal show.
Yeah.
In fact, he was there to talk about Africa Day. He was not there to talk about the flag. So I called him. I usually don't do that. I don't tell my client what we're going to talk about. Or what the questions are going to be. I just say, you come, we're going to talk about everything within an hour. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So, but this one, I called him and said, hey, Chief, there's this flag theme, and I know you're coming to talk about Africa Day. In fact, there was an interview they requested. Yeah. It's not one of those where we come, say you come, which I don't know who does that. Communicators must know. Shows like those, you don't request to come.
Yeah.
You must be called because you don't know what may happen there. So this is what happened with Natim Ted. So I called him and said, hey, Chief, we're going to deal with this flag thing. He says, yeah, no, sure. No problem. I said, yeah, before we get to Africa Day, we're going to deal with this thing of the flag. He comes, very nice guy. And then the first half an hour was on this flag, and it was a disaster. That clip of those 30 minutes had 1 million views overnight. And as you know, the president had to say to him, hey, no, please cancel this thing. Right? But it's not something that we had planned and we went out of. No, it was really, truly something that we can claim credit for. Yeah. So why am I talking about this? Take the Zuma interview. I interviewed Zuma for 2 hours. Right? And he said things that he has never told anyone. He told us about how he met Ramaphosa, how Ramaphosa was imposed on him. Because I asked him, what's your beef with Ramaphosa? Yeah. So he explained this beef. That's why it took 2 hours. Right? And I'm not saying that's all he talked about.
Yeah.
But it was going to sink the ANC even worse.
You don't need a second job. You just need to learn how to talk to AI. Let's be real. Most people over 40 use
In a sense, it was a blessing that it was not played. Because if it was played, you can imagine the backlash. Now they'll be saying, yeah, this interview that you played, this is why MK got 15. Now I don't have to deal with that. Right? But when I launch my podcast,
you will.
where nobody's going to tell me which guest to bring, I'll be happy to host Musholozi, and we're going to restage that interview.
Okay, I'm told we out of time, Professor JJ, but I need to ask you about Gavin Mkari.
Okay.
He responded, he made some comments last time. How do you feel?
No, I'm suing Given Makari in power for millions of rands. The case is about to come to a head because he has had 2 years to review it and he failed to do that. And so I understand if he's in a panic of some sort, trying to attack me. I'm not interested. I'm in court. And when that court case is finished, I will have enough to say.
Okay. Professor JJ Tabane, always a great pleasure sitting down with you, picking your brains. I enjoy. Thank you very much for...
JJ and Mr. Mkari, they are in court. What for? Yeah, I didn't know that, man. They are in court. What are they doing there? Yeah, hi guys. You know, when it comes to JJ, guys, I can tell you right now, one thing that when you invite JJ to be part of your show, maybe to be whatever, on radio, TV, whatever it is, I would say, listen, just tell him to say, my guy, do whatever you want to do, okay? That's my opinion on him, okay? Now, he is good in what he does in terms of television, radio stuff, okay? Politics and speaking, blah, blah, blah. He is very good, okay? And you will want to have somebody like that, but you don't want to have somebody like that, and then after it, you want to control them. Then it becomes a problem, okay? You want to control them in such a way that they can't breathe, they can't be themselves. It's a problem, okay? That is why I'm saying, when you invite him to be on your show, to do a show for you, to do whatever on television, whatever, make sure that you give them, make them to be free. To tell them, do whatever, express yourself. All we need is just to, because as he explains, not all, his shows that he does, they make good views, which is what they actually are looking for. But unfortunately, people, they don't want a person who express themselves. If you express yourself in a way that people, I don't know, they want you to be diplomatic, they tell you what to do, take this direction, move this way, sit down, JJ, I don't think it's one of those guys, and I'm looking forward to his podcast, and I am hoping that he does invite Mr. Zuma, and Mr. Zuma allows him, Now, what I would say to JJ, please, my guy, make it very quick, because you can see, ubaba phela, in fact, the years are going, so you have to be very quick, otherwise you will miss the opportunity, I would love to hear that interview, because we all know because if JJ says he said things there, it means those are deeper things, are things that maybe they can, as he said, they could have messed up things more for the ANC, who knows, Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. I can see that some of you guys, you like the video, the live. I really appreciate that. I love that. Doesn't matter even if you are 3, 4, as long as you thought of liking my live, I really, really would like to appreciate all of that, guys. Thank you also for subscribing so much. I thank you so much. It will be very nice, to get to 6,000 subscribers quicker. That will be very nice. I appreciate you, all of you guys, and I love you so much. You take care of yourself, and me, myself, and the channel, and everyone else who was watching, who is going to watch after the... let me say this. If you will be watching after the live, you are welcome. You can like the video also. I appreciate you so much, and all of that. Now, the plan, guys, with my channel right now, is that I want to change the name, but I want to change the name and put it in. But I think you saw there were times where I was maybe making videos, and then I will put a picture on the side. I want to call it that name, but I will do it very quick, not quick. What am I saying? I will do it soon, and that's what I want to do. There is a reason why I'm doing that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Please like again if you see me. Like the video. Have a fantastic and a wonderful day. I am out.